In prevention, we are all leaders. Whether you're leading a nationwide prevention initiative, facilitating statewide prevention community, you're a coalition coordinator, or a one-person shop, you are a prevention leader. How we show up and how we engage with others to create positive change takes all types of leadership. So sit back and enjoy these conversations with your fellow prevention leaders from across the globe who are sharing their lessons learned, best practices, and strategies for success. Hi, everybody. This is Dave Clausen from DJC Solutions, and you're listening to the Prevention Leaders Podcast, the show that brings you conversations with like-minded and driven prevention leaders from across the globe. Before we start the show, I want to tell you about the Pathways to Prevention podcast from Drug Free America Foundation. Some of the recent episodes include the One Choice team at the Institute for Behavior and Health, a fascinating leader who serves incarcerated adults and juveniles in Lebanon, and an episode with the Well Communities, which was created and developed by an individual who had been in and out of prison since the age of 16 and was a person who used drugs for more than 25 years. So if you're looking for inspiring stories and prevention influence from across the globe, then you need to listen to the Pathways to Prevention podcast. But today we are talking about prevention in the higher ed setting with Dr. Allison Smith, who facilitates a statewide higher ed prevention coalition, oversees statewide core survey administration, provides professional development training for higher ed staff, stakeholders, and even facilitates campus community partnerships, all while also delivering technical assistance around the issue of substance use prevention in collegiate communities. But without further ado, I am excited to welcome longtime friend Dr. Allison Smith to the episode. Allison, welcome.
Thank you, Dave, for having me on. I'm so excited to join you. Great introduction. One part of that is I've been around in higher ed and prevention and on the recovery side, which, kind of goes through the spectrum in the higher ed world, seeing as how they're pretty much kept separate. But I think there's some great folks like yourself and others in this space that are doing some really great work to kind of integrate those two worlds. And that's kind of where I sit in the middle of all of this.
Marvelous. And I want to say our paths first crossed back, 2016 or 17, maybe. Been a little while.
The last few years have all kind of run together.
Right. That is a very fair statement. Let's start off. I'm curious about what led you to working in your current role.
So I tell this story often because it is, in my mind, it is totally mind-blowing to me still at this point, 12 years later. I applied for an internship through the National Association for Equal Opportunity in Higher Education. And it was for minority student applicants. There was a portion for Black or African American identified students and a portion for Hispanic identified students. And what they do is they take your internship application and they submit it to federal employers. And you can get a random call from someone like me, for example, who got a call from CSAP, the Center for Substance Abuse Prevention. And no lie, I had them. I said, can you hold on a second? Now you got to think, this is 2010, maybe April 2010. I'm like, can you hold on for a second until I Google you? Because I thought it was spam. I had never heard of them before, had never heard of prevention, had never heard of any of those things. And so I'm like, I didn't know. I applied to NAFIO, did not apply to CSAP. So I got the internship, and what was really great, and look, I may run off on a tangent here, is that it was a paid internship. I am not a fan of unpaid internships because I think they stifle access to quality internships that can literally change the trajectory of a student's career, because it did that for my career. I was doing the internship as part of my master's in public administration program at Louisiana State University, and we had to secure an internship. There would be no way I was able to leave Baton Rouge and go to DC for a federally paid internship if it had not been paid and had different travel expenses. So here's my little soapbox moment. To all internships, please pay your interns. It makes it more equitable for everyone to have an equal opportunity.
Yes. And Have you heard of the PTTC network and their fellows that they have launched this year?
I was so excited to see the email come through. I know the PTCC has a special spot in your heart. Thanks for all the great work you've done with them and the resources you all have brought throughout the prevention field. And so once I got that, my resume was passed on to someone at our institution while I was summer, and they said, "Hey, we have this office that works in substance use prevention." And I became the graduate assistant 12 years ago. And now I am still heading that office. I'm the only person within the last 12 years that's still in that office. And it has been an amazing ride being able to see all of the aspects from a graduate assistant to coordinator to the associate director to now the assistant commissioner for that particular program in office.
Talk about a wonderful, wonderful story. First, I just love hearing how folks end up or make their way to working in prevention, and that there's a lot of insights there that we in the field could glean, could grab onto when it comes to workforce development and just building our workforce too. That should be a whole nother episode though. Let's save that one. All right. So I know in the intro I mentioned you serve campuses across a state, providing TA, community and campus connection with stakeholders, and a lot of support. And I have a feeling that within that, you do a little bit of strategic planning. I would love to just dig into to learn from all the different perspectives that you have had and you have when it comes to strategic planning and higher ed prevention. What do you got for us?
So one of the things that's really interesting is that I not only work with a ton of campuses from 4-year, 2-year, HBCU, so like college universities or non-HBCU institutions, public, private. I also work with statewide agencies. And then I also work with their local or regional health offices. And it's always very interesting to help marry those two worlds and get to the common ground of what prevention and campus safety means for each party. So for instance, traditionally in statewide agencies, local or community behavioral health type organizations, we always hear about the strategic prevention framework. We always hear about the SPIF. If you spent 5 minutes in higher ed working with people who do AOD prevention or recovery, most of them will tell you they hate the SPIF.
Right.
It seems a very rigid process that doesn't necessarily translate well over into higher education, given the way, like, I know state agencies are very bureaucratic, but I am of the thought that there is no institution more bureaucratic than a higher education campus. So that has been something helping our community and state level folks understand how the process works at a campus and helping our campus folks understand how it works in a statewide or community agency. So with that, I think Rich, Lucy, and Campus Drug Prevention, and Sean and their team, they've done a really great job. I say one of the best things you all have done with the Prevention with Purpose guides is take the strategic prevention framework and make it into a linear model to take the circle, the flower that the community prevention world has known and put it into 5 linear blocks so that you're to follow on a college campus. Because I would love to tell you things move fast, but they do not on a college campus. And so being able to lay out the same step in a different way. And I think part of that is a cultural competency piece, understanding the audience in which you're trying to serve, not just force feeding them what you're used to, but figuring out how to serve them with the information that best suits them. And so getting everyone to the table is like, you're all like, nobody's against capacity building, right? Nobody's against assessment. Nobody's against planning. Nobody's against implementation. Nobody's against evaluation. We just need to do it in a way that makes sense for each party to understand and that we're able to achieve our data-driven goals. Because I know a lot of our campuses and our community organizations have data. And I think data is a really great piece that keeps task force, coalitions, all of these, forced work groups from going off the rails sometimes. Because a lot of times we'll see that when people come together for one of those type organizational group meetings, there's always usually a person that wants to go off on their pet project issue. It's like, nope, let the data guide us. I understand you're really, really passionate about tobacco cessation, but our data tells us literally that's not really a problem. We need to look at increased stimulant use or opioid misuse or drinking and driving still. Letting the data guide you, I think it creates a pretty good roadmap on when you get to strategic planning.
Let the data be your guide. So with your work helping translate, helping connect the dots between the SPIF and higher ed and your campuses, where have you really seen some success with it?
I think no doubt like helping launch one of the first collegiate recovery programs in the state of Louisiana. So what we've seen from a lot of data is that college students do not typically utilize opioids at the rates that the general population does. And even with the newest results from the 2022 college prescription drug study from the Ohio State University, we see that that is still the trend that college students tend to misuse stimulants more than opioids. But we know that just given where our national focus is on opioid misuse, we know that that is where a lot of our state community, their funding is directed. So for us, part of that bringing that conversation together is that no, their college students don't use opioids as much, but we do see a stimulant use, and we know that there's an increase in fake pills. And we know the only thing that reverses overdose is naloxone. And so utilizing one of SAMHSA's harm reduction strategies of providing naloxone access, having our state and community partners fund the naloxone that goes on all of our college campuses for free, bringing them together for the common goal of reducing the amount of opioid overdoses in that community. That is a place that they all can work together. They all can support student safety in that aspect, bringing in the campus community to provide free training that they're looking for ways to partner with the institutions in those areas. We can provide that bridge and be a liaison between the statewide agencies and the campuses, and just helping them make sure everyone is on the same page. And I am also very much a fan of making sure that our campuses get services for free with no cost incurred to them.
Mm-hmm. Folks, are you hearing that servant mindset, that servant heart, wanting to help and support? That's just one of the many reasons why Dr. Allison Smith is a favorite of mine. I'm curious, though, when it comes to that, when it comes to strategic planning, when it comes to working with higher ed campuses, what have been a couple, barriers or challenges that you've experienced?
So I definitely think one is, so I spent the first 8 years of my career in this field on a college campus. There were a lot more things that the college campus has a little bit, there are a lot of places where the college campus has a little bit more liberty to discuss or be vocal on certain issues, whereas working at a statewide agency, that's not necessarily the case. And so finding ways to educate, let's say, timid supporters, those that may I'm not really quite sure. I want to be helpful, but I'm not really quite sure about this strategy you want to take. So for us, that was the issue with naloxone, providing free naloxone to all of our campuses here. Educating key stakeholders on this is what this is what this does, and this is how it can increase student safety. And helping people understand that this is a proven harm reduction tactic. It's not an encouragement to increase use, but we want to keep people safe. Being able to combat and fight disinformation and misinformation around harm reduction, I think, has been one of the challenges. Combat and fight disinformation and misinformation around harm reduction, I think, has been one of the challenges, not just I'm facing, but others in this space, particularly those that are state or grant funded, balancing that, always utilizing the data to back up your point, so utilizing the research and not getting offended by people's initial reaction to your thoughts to pursuing harm reduction, and understanding that it's an education journey, that you don't want to turn away your stakeholders. You want to educate them as many times as it takes for them to be on the side of student safety.
So much wisdom there. So I like how you said that, be on the side of student safety. But then what I'm hearing is a big part of your role and what we can do as prevention leaders is one, be a connector, be the hub that brings people together. And within that, there's opportunity to educate. A part of being able to connect folks is educate them and help them see how they're connected.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that has been really great is being able to connect local resources with the campuses and then having the campuses go back and show them this is what we've done with the funding that we got. This is what we've done. These are the students who you've helped. These are students that are in recovery that you all are helping to support. This is a place, these are students who you all have given a sense of help to foster a sense of belonging on our campus. These are students who just graduated. These are students who are reconsidering their use because of the investment that we've made to their safety. And I think for me on the community side, the bigger piece there has been explaining how the universities work. So sometimes I've gotten, well, we tried to work with this institution before, but we emailed the president's office asking could they be at our event on Thursday. And they were like, no, he cannot come. And I'm like, you actually don't need the president. You actually probably need the health coordinator at your event, right? That's probably who you need tabling. We can tell you about all the available programming. They can do different training. They can do those kinds of things, helping to reroute them and educate them on who, like at this point, we know most of our people in prevention, and I applaud you all, wear multiple hats. It doesn't matter what your title on paper says. You probably have 12 different hats because the titles do not reflect duties. And so getting you to the right person, I think is a key piece on the community side.
Mm-hmm. I'm still hearing that connector, educator, but yes, the bigger level of how campuses function, operate. I totally get that. Totally get that. Got to build those relationships. You just kind of hinted at when it comes to the SPIF, the strategic prevention framework that we all love oh so dearly. I may know a few folks that joke about getting the SPIF flower tattoo, but to bring us back serious here, let's talk about cultural competence, cultural humility, and how, in the SPIF flower, it's at the heart of the flower. But often folks, when I'm working with communities, with campuses, they're thinking about it linearly. And okay, have we, really, what are we doing to address cultural competence when it should be woven throughout each step of the framework? What is your experience with that?
So there's a saying, nothing about us without us, that I think it's very hard to create something for a person, give it to them and say, here, and it becomes weird when your feelings get hurt when they don't want it. That's like if I say, here, Dave, here's an excellent steak dinner. This is Wagyu beef. This is the best steak you can get. And I hand it to you. And you'd be like, Allison, I'm a vegetarian.
Yeah, I'm on a plant-based diet here. I'm trying to lower my cholesterol.
Yes. But just think about that. So I'm naturally going to be offended, right? Even if I try to hide it, because I've spent so much time, so much money, so much effort preparing what I think is a really great thing for you. And for you to tell me, I actually don't want that because of my preference. But if you had asked me before, you could have done something just as meaningful with something that I wanted. If I had just talked to you in the assessment piece, if I had just seen what you had wanted, I could have easily skipped some of that. Now I have to go back and redo it because guess what? I still have to serve you, but I have to serve you what you need. And so sometimes I think that is where we get off into a really on a bad foot, is skipping that in the assessment piece. Who are we assessing? Or when we do our campus-wide assessment, are we including all segments of our student population? Or are we just relying on the data we've always gotten, or if we go to the groups that we always go to, making sure that we're being inclusive and culturally competent for our setting, for our campus setting, making sure that everyone's being included.
How do you go about doing that? How do you invite those you serve? How do you get them to the table and say, hey, doing this awesome thing called the strategic prevention framework, prevention work, like you'd love to be a part of it, come join us for this meeting.
I think it's something as simple as, hey, we're looking at ways to see how we can help keep you all safer. Or we're talking to student groups. We want to see ways we can keep students safer. We're really interested in to know, what are the concerns of your community? Well, how can we address those? I think a really great thing that happened here. So during the height of the pandemic, one of our institutions in Louisiana, Dillard University, they did a campaign, like part of their vaccination campaign it was called Wipe Out Rona. It was but they called it Rona. They didn't call it coronavirus. They didn't call it COVID-19 because that's the language that resonated with their campus community. That wouldn't work on many other campuses, but that worked for that private HBCU in South Louisiana. You have to be intentional about being culturally competent for your campus and understanding that, yes, you can take a package program, but you have to still tailor it to your population. Of course, like our good friend Rich Lucy would say, you want to be sure that you're not tailoring it so much to where you have no semblance of the original programming, but you do want to be culturally competent and making sure that you're getting to the needs of that particular community. Because if I give you the same status quo programming, it's never going to reach different communities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I heard, go out and talk to the students, go out and meet them where they're at, and not just talk, but listen.
I think we're in a place where I don't think, no matter what the topic is or who's asking, most people will give you their opinion if you ask. And lots of them, even if you don't ask, they will give you their opinion.
That is right. That is right. So what would be just one bit of advice you would give our listeners, our prevention leaders, as it relates to cultural competence / cultural humility?
Ask different groups on your campus what they need and allow them to help you shape the response. So, for instance, there was a young lady at Howard University a few years ago who was working with their collegiate recovery program, and she wanted to do a cipher. And so a cipher is a mashup of people rapping about a particular topic. And it's like the way they cut the video, it's pretty cool. And she had some funding. They told her, well, through some federal grant funding, and they told her, well, that you can't do that because that's not an evidence-based program, the foreign program. That won't be effective. They told that answer to a young lady who is at one of the oldest HBCUs in Washington, D.C. It's called the Mecca. Howard's nickname is the Mecca. A huge place, and who had her hand on the pulse of the culture at that campus. And they told her she couldn't do it. Fast forward to 2020 when the BET Awards they had to be virtual due to the pandemic. And what do we see? They brought back ciphers. They had ciphers. So Black Entertainment Television, one of the largest black focused programming networks, had ciphers. They had celebrities doing ciphers, all of these different things on different segments on different topics, because they knew it would be effective in reaching their audience. So we have to be careful that when we ask people what do they want, the humility piece allows what they said to guide our response. So I understand that it's not something that you've seen be effective before, but let's try it. And we don't get to the research piece if we don't ever try anything new. SAMHSA released a report a couple of weeks ago that it typically takes 17 years for something to become an evidence-based practice or evidence-informed. We do not have 17 years to wait. And so eventually we have to decide who gets to decide what's evidence-based or evidence-informed. And we have to start finding new research types.
I like to talk with you and other prevention professionals that we've got to innovate, but still staying grounded in the science that we know to be effective. So finding that mashup of bringing those two worlds together. Absolutely. So we could probably talk about innovation, creativity a lot more. I want to dig in and talk collegiate recovery. I know that is a part of your role. You've mentioned it a couple times now throughout this conversation. First, I kind of have to say some of our listeners might not really be familiar with the collegiate recovery community. What does it mean?
So generally I think the best description that it's a safe, affirming space for students who are in recovery for substance misuse on their campus that allows them the additional peer, academic, and social support as they continue on to graduation so that they do not have to stop their collegiate career in order to maintain their sobriety or their recovery.
Yes. And what all you got going on in that neighborhood?
So what I am very interested in helping grow collegiate recovery in Louisiana, we currently have 2 programs and we have another one that's looking to get off the ground next fall, but expanding that. There are about 155 programs nationally. We only have 2 in Louisiana. That's not acceptable for me. I think our students should not have to leave our state to go to a campus that provides the resources that they need to be successful.
What is a collegiate recovery community? What does that entail?
So typically it entails a staff person or a graduate assistant that is dedicated to helping students in recovery with peer support, academic adjustment, social interaction, service projects, and they can vary. Those program components can vary based on which campus you are at. And I would definitely advise anyone who is interested in learning more about collegiate recovery to visit the Association of Recovery and Higher Education's website at collegiaterecovery.org.
How can us as listeners, help get that 3rd, 4th, 5th campus in Louisiana going when it comes to collegiate recovery? What can we do to help you?
So one, I think educating like your own campus, your own stakeholders, as we get more stakeholders that are informed, I think one on the national level, because I would love to tell everybody that everybody just decides to, oh, let's just do all these really great things at once. That's typically not how prevention works on our campuses. Let's just be honest that it usually tends to be a reactive thing to something typically tragic that has happened. And so I think this is where environmental strategies come in. So we know that, for instance, all states didn't want to have seatbelt laws, but the federal government said, if you do not have a seatbelt law, you do not enforce it, you will not get traffic funding or safety funding for roads and bridges. Now they all have seatbelt things. So we can put in national policies or tie funding to that kind of carrot and stick thing that we can increase the prevalence of collegiate recovery, not just in Louisiana, but through any of our other states as well. Because we know in 2019, the Office of National Drug Control Policy strategy included calling for each campus to have collegiate recovery supports, because we know that it is a protective factor for students against misuse or return to use.
And you touched on it and I grabbed it because it resonated with me, but a lot of it is about that sense of belonging and sense of safety on campus. I know. So for me, my own struggles when I was dealing with my post-traumatic stress and drinking on campus, I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like I belonged there. I was older than the other students. I had different life experiences and I just wanted to fit in and feel, quote, normal. And the culture that I perceived, I didn't have that safe, supportive community to join to help me reach and sustain sobriety, that belonging. Yeah, I'm just kind of lost in thought right now.
That's the key thing. We want to make sure students have that. And so any of the research from the last 25 or 30 years, if we look nationally, the college drinking of the reported drinking on colleges, just drinking, hasn't really changed in about 30 years. It stayed around that 42 to 46%. And so we know that even if a student leaves, they go to an inpatient treatment facility or they come back, the college campus they're coming back to has not changed all that drastically. And so what we want to do is provide supports for students who are in those environments, provide peer support and additional alternatives. So what we're saying is that we don't believe that you have to be relegated to staying off campus or staying in a dorm room to stay on campus, but that you can be an active participant in your campus community while maintaining your sobriety. We don't have to like shun away or say, I can't go on campus. I can't go to a football game because there's going to be all these things. Our campuses can have sober tailgates or sober themes, sober events that our students, we're making sure that we're catering to all of our students on campus.
Absolutely. And have you heard about the shift makers at UT Austin?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool when I had Kate Lower on to talk about that. That is like just fascinating. I wanna go experience it in person. I just think about how the impact that that's having on the culture, the norms there on campus. Collegiate recovery, bringing community stakeholders, campus stakeholders together, and of course the students, and through your work with all of the different campuses across the state. I'm curious what insights, what wisdom you could offer, you could share as it relates to really leveraging social capital.
So I think that we all have greatness in us, like every single one of us. And I think the key to that is figuring out how do you use your greatness for goodness? How do you use the access, the networks, the resources you have to help other people? And I think when we think about, and I always, you mentioned the word servant earlier. I am very big on servant leadership. And I think we have to approach relationships with the, how can I serve you? And it's not just about what can I get from you, but how can I serve you? And that serves our greater mission, our bigger goal to make sure that we're all about student safety, because we all do a ton of things. There's a ton of activities we could list out, but the main goal is that they're focused on student safety, because none of us want to see another student lost to substance use. That is the goal. And so we try to make sure that we're doing things to leverage that. So maybe for me, that's an opportunity. There are people that that, you have access to, you meet them in different settings, or who do you make space for? That's like, if you always get taps to sit on committees or task force, you can say, well, actually, I'm really busy, but I do have another recommendation that can sit on that. I think they would have a really great viewpoint they can add to this committee. Being able to yield the floor and the seat to other people sometimes, like there are certain things that, and I think you're really great about this is, one, like even this podcast, having other people on the field in this field that you believe are valuable, their insights, their expertise is valuable, subject matter experts to share with others, that you could get on here every day, Dave, and I'm sure, and talk for days because you've done some amazing things. You do some amazing work, but being able to leverage your networks and your access, sharing with other people, exposing your different audiences to different resources that they may not be familiar with. Because I'm sure there's somebody on your pod that listens to your podcast. This will be the first time they've heard from me.
So everybody has greatness inside of them that I can just close my eyes and picture you up on a stage saying that, and the room, the energy in the room just building up and just everybody feeling it. Before we go into our last topic, I know you do some speaking, and you said some of my guests may, or my audience members, maybe the first time hearing you. What can they do if they want to work with you, if they want to hear more from you? What you got going on?
So, if they would like more information, they can visit my website at drallisonmichellesmith.com, and we can find out what ways we can work together. And even if I'm not the best person for what you need, like Dave, I have no problem connecting you to those who may meet your need.
Well, I've presented alongside you on some national stage virtually, and I know you rock it in person as well. So yes, listeners, definitely, we're looking for an amazing speaker. You know where to go, and the link will be in the show notes. Also, you are a rock star when it comes to Twitter as well. Is it cool if I put your link?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll drop that in the show notes also. But we've been chatting for a while, and I kind of been holding on to this topic that I really wanted to dive into with you. And it's owning your authenticity in the workplace. And I could be vulnerable and talk about my own personal experience as it relates to this, but I know this is something that you speak to. What can you tell us about owning your authenticity in the workplace?
I don't think we serve our students best unless we show up as ourselves. And so for me, that was a whole discovery process that I went on through the process of my doctoral journey. Like, for instance, I only wore my hair straight to work. That was the only way that I would wear it. But then as I went throughout that process, I learned that I don't want to work with people who need to see me in a certain way to work with me. And so for me, that what that looks like now is that I show up, you have no idea how my hair may look or things like that, but that is me. I may show up with lime green nails or anything, but that's who I am. That's how I'm comfortable. I'm able to serve at my best when I'm able to show fully as myself. And I don't think we should put ourselves in situations, relationships, places, contracts, agreements where we cannot show up as our best self.
Yes, this is audio only, but listeners, I'm over here just rocking my head. Just yes. Being your best self, owning your authentic self. Like, that's something that I struggled with a lot early on in my professional career. And even still to this day, sometimes I have to remind myself, like, whoa, be Dave. Just Dave. Just be Dave. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I was in Zoom with Jeff Genbach and doing a return reflection. And I kind of came to this realization, like, I need to be me, but be me bolder, be more me. We get, at least me, I found myself getting so busy with my to-do list that my to-do list was starting to pull me away from who I really am or who I wanted to be. And I had to hit the brakes and get back to being my true self. What would you offer somebody that might be, that young professional, that seasoned professional that might be curious about how to go about showing up as their authentic self in the workplace?
I would definitely say be you anyway. The work is still going to be there. The work won't change, but you'll feel much better. You will relieve so much pressure, so much stress off yourself instead of trying to conform into what you think people want you to be.
Yes, just be yourself. And actually, one fun little story. I'm wearing a shirt that says "Live Unconquered" right now. I know y'all can't see it. I'm gonna drop a link in the show notes too, because it's a longtime friend, Adam Davis, who's a former police officer turned speaker and author. But why that relates to this topic right now is that I used to feel like I had to dress up when I would travel for work, like sport coat, suit, tie, all of that. And it's just not me. I just feel so fake and uncomfortable and forced and just not authentic. And so now I'm to the point where, like, when I travel, if I'm doing a speaking engagement, depending upon the setting, I'm going to actually wear a shirt, a motivational, inspirational shirt that supports a friend, that supports a nonprofit that I believe in as well. And this shirt is one of them, Live Unconquered. But that's one way where I am now stepping more into me, being authentically me and showing up as Dave Clausen.
I love that. Like, I absolutely love that because I've also gone through a very similar thing, thinking that I had to wear what's considered like business casual colors, like navy, black, brown. Oh no, now you may see me show up in a red sequin top or something hot pink or glitter or sparkles or sequin. I love sequins, but I feel much more confident when I'm able to show up as myself, that I'm not fitting into what other people want me to be. And then that also in turn makes me more confident in my presentation and my ability to help serve those who I'm there to serve.
Yes, allows you to bring your A game. And actually I have a little coaching activity I do with my coaching clients on A game versus B game, really exploring what helps them bring their A game, be at their best, and what are those things that kind of take them away. And so they bring their B game. They're not their best. Yeah. Oh, I love this conversation. So being at your best, bringing your A game, what would be a tip, a hack, a key to bringing your A game that you would share with our listeners?
One, I think getting really comfortable in yourself. I know it's one of those things like when you look good, you feel good. I totally believe that to be true. Whatever that means for you. if that's wacky colors or that's leopard print or something, whatever that means for you, being sure that you look good. Like, I know this is a podcast recording. I still dressed up like it's an in-person presentation because for me, when I look good, I feel good. And so being able to do that, and then I know I'm going to pitch it to you. I have a question for you, Dave. Like, I believe in a hype song. So what would you say is one of your songs or some type of music you like to listen to before to like help you prepare?
Yeah. So I don't get pumped up before. I don't need a hype song. Well, actually we'll just tell a story. So in high school, I was on the wrestling team and my nickname was Sleeping Beauty because before my match, before I was supposed to go out there, most of the other wrestlers were out, headphones on, jumping up and down, looked like they were listening to Rocky, Eye of the Tiger. And I'm just sitting in like this meditative state with headphones in, just relaxing, quiet music, just kind of centering myself. And so for me, that's if I'm going to quote, take the stage or really be at my best, I need time to just kind of pause and just center myself. And I'll actually close my eyes and I play the movie of myself doing whatever I'm about to do. I watch the movie in my mind. So I play it out the way that I envision it, the way that I've rehearsed it, the way that I've practiced it. And I just kind of calm and center myself. And then I go. So not a hype song, a little different.
Definitely. I have two routines. So one right before I'm like getting ready to go on stage or something, I definitely take the more calm and meditative approach and just kind of chill out. But then before, like while I'm getting ready though, I pretty much always listen to the song You Can't Stop Me by Andy Mineo. And so that is a song that gets me very hyped and I get all prepared. Like there's nobody that can stop me. Like even I can't stop me. Like, yeah. So that is definitely one of my get hype songs. And I think one finding whatever that's something that centers you or hypes you up, calms you down, doing whatever that is. But the key piece to that is that you have to make time for that. You have to decide what that is and you have to make time to do it. And so sometimes as prevention professionals, we tend to neglect what makes us happy and setting aside the time for that. So being sure that you take care of yourself while you're trying to take care of so many other people.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When I need to, because we're talking about music and I kind of love sharing this story. It makes me smile real big. When I'm in my office and I'm just wanting to get in like a flow state where I'm just in a zone, just working, where's that beep button? Getting stuff done. My wife and I, for our wedding dinner, we made a Spotify playlist and we just played that in the background. And so I still have that playlist 2 years later. So I just put that on and it just kind of brings me joy and I just get work done. And it just, yeah, if I'm feeling a little stressed, boom, turn that right back on, cheers me up. Like music is powerful. It is.
Absolutely. I love it.
Oh, I know where I was going to go. So as we were talking about like dressing the part for work or authenticity in the workplace, when I started, like I was struggling with it, I wasn't happy, I felt forced and uncomfortable. I took baby steps instead of like I wasn't courageous enough to just go all in and say, you know what, I'm gonna start dressing, like Dave dresses. I took baby steps in that I started wearing goofy dress socks. So not as bold in your face, but I took baby steps. And then I would dial back and I wouldn't wear a tie. And for me, that was what helped me sort of make that change. And so listeners, don't feel like you've got to go all in. You can start taking baby steps. It's okay too. It's okay.
Yeah, because I didn't show up in sequins altogether. I changed my hair one of the times, and then the next time I changed my nails to like a lime green color. And so very much baby steps. And then it became, okay, let's put in a bolder top. Let's mix in a print here or there. But it definitely was baby steps. So yeah, do not let Dave or I put you under the impression that we just showed up overnight from one presentation to the next. Totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm curious, and this might be going different direction, too personal, so that's A-okay. A big part of me finding the courage to go all in on being me, I first had to really figure out who I am, but then also who did I want to be? And I really had to like not wrestle, but like dig into and explore that. Did you have a similar process or experience? What was that like for you?
So absolutely. And I had to, and I think that's the piece where prevention folks, we have to take the time for ourselves again, right? Because that takes time to figure out. But for me, I had compartmentalized so many different parts of myself and kept them separate and figuring out how do I want to integrate them, determining what I want to share. So like, for instance, like in your links for the show, I'll give you my Twitter and my LinkedIn profile to share. Like my Facebook and my Instagram, those are things I chose to keep personal. Like those are parts I don't want to share. I want to keep those parts more intimate for my family and close friends, but I do want to share other pieces. And I think we don't have to neglect the pieces that we get to decide what we share and how we show up. And so make the decisions that are best for you on what you share and how you show up.
I saw, actually, it's this morning on Instagram. I tend to hang out there the most these days when it comes to social media. A quote about walls keep people out, but fences or boundaries merely show them where the door is. And I don't know why that just popped in my head now as well, but I just thought, that is good because boundaries are important. It's a-okay to have boundaries. They are a-okay, but then also connection, community, togetherness is oh so important as well. And so as I'm thinking why that popped in my head now is that with your social media, you've determined where your boundaries are and you've shown people, hey, I do want to connect and here's how we can connect. So yeah, that was my thinking.
Yeah. So yeah, I absolutely get that because I initially felt guilty. People are like, oh, you should give me your Facebook. You should give me your Instagram. Like, but I don't want to. And that's okay to not want to do something. And that's okay to tell people you don't want to do something. Dave mentioned I am very active on Twitter. But yeah. So it's not like I'm not active anywhere, but being able and being comfortable with what you share and then creating those boundaries because if we don't, because our work is ongoing 24/7, we will become consumed by it. It will be everywhere we turn. And I think we deserve peace in our lives. And I believe we deserve freedom from work for parts of our lives. So also, this is shameless plug. This is November. We're recording this. If you have time off to take and you haven't taken it this year, go ahead and take some time off. You deserve it.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I was sending our friend David Anderson an email this morning and I said, November, December, work-wise, are a little slower, but that's by design. Intentionality, because we got to. And I'm going to have you back on because we've got a great theme here, great topics going, and I want to talk about like self-love as prevention professionals and like loving ourselves and bringing our best, being our best, bringing that A game. But before we close out, because we've been talking for quite some time, because we chatted before we even hit record, what would be one final word of wisdom, or if you're going to remember one thing from this podcast episode, remember this. What would that be?
The work you do is important, but who you are is more important. That you cannot lose yourself in the process of all the work we do. We're all busy. But you matter. The amount of care and support you seek to give your students and other people that you serve, you're so very deserving of that same amount of care.
Yes. Yes. Listeners, I hope that felt like a nice warm hug for you all because you do matter. You do matter. And Dr. Allison Smith, you are an incredible human being. Thank you for taking time out of your day, your busy schedule, and the important work you're doing to have this conversation with me. It's an honor.
It has been such an honor having this conversation with you. It's always like catching up with an old friend talking with you, Dave.
Yes. Hey, prevention is better together. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, listeners, check the show notes for links so you can get connected with Allison and stay up to date with all the work she has going on and maybe even help get some more collegiate recovery communities going on in your state and or her state, because prevention is better together and together we are stronger. Thank y'all very much. That concludes this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and share this episode with a friend before you leave. And we look forward to seeing you on social media, because prevention is better together. Together, we are stronger.